Okay, welcome. I'm here with Vanessa Lemen, and she is going to talk to us today about her intuitive art process, not only in picture making, but also in storytelling. She'll also share with us her new book called Sentience, and I look forward to speaking with Vanessa about her work, her process, and her unique way of being able to be responsive with the surface as she paints. Welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you. That was so nice. Thank you so much.
Why don't we talk a little bit, Vanessa, about the painting that you're going to be working on as we go through the interview?
Okay, this painting, it was something I picked up really because it was kind of in the process, and it was a while back that I worked on it. But I had done it it's a start that I did for a demonstration for one of my classes that I taught a while back. And it's on an artifacts panel, which is the aluminum panels that um I think this one is lead prime, so it's oil only painting, and it's an all-in panel. And they artifacts, if nobody knows who they are, or if they're curious, we can put that in the article too. But um, great people, really, really into the longevity of the work. Um, so that includes the panel that it's on. And so it's aluminum, but they have all different kinds of options to paint on. And this one happens to be lead primed. And it's called an all in panel, but they have like all different kinds of, you know, variations of the all in panel. They have all
Yes.
sorts of different things to choose from. It's kind of like, it would be like, I would be going on and on about it. But
Yeah.
like I said, awesome people, really helpful. If you were curious about like working on a panel of theirs, you can reach out to them and they'll be super helpful.
The wonderful thing too is the owner of the company comes from a family of artists and people who are in the business of creating artist materials. So although they specialize in surfaces, his dad and mom, Anton's dad and mom, they make their own paints. They make mediums, they make varnishes, natural pigments. So you'll have to check them out too. And it's always a good thing as an artist when you have an option to not just work with a manufacturer. You know what I mean? Somebody who just doesn't care really about artists, but actually hears, their needs and listens to them.
Right, I agree. Yeah, super helpful people. Like Anton's amazing.
Yep.
Yeah,
Ditto, ditto.
yeah.
Okay, Vanessa, if you want to switch up to working on the panel, we'll start working on the interview. Vanessa, your work is so intuitive. It's very much a responsive process where you kind of feel your way through the work. Can you just talk to us about your journey? How did you start working like this?
Oh, yeah, I feel like I always did. But but maybe there's a journey of progression of more and more of it showing up that way. Um
Hmm.
and that could be like thinking that I needed to be doing a certain thing a certain way, as maybe getting into what do I want to do? Do I want to be an illustrator? So then thinking I need to be doing it a certain way for that line of work, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And then just realizing, I think there was a point where like I didn't even submit to things, thinking, oh, I don't fit there, and so I wouldn't. And then realizing just by taking a chance and submitting and not even having a thought that I would ever, get accepted into something with my work, uh, because I felt like it didn't really belong, in the sense of it being, you know, a certain way that I thought it should be. Then realizing that being different was probably a good thing.
Hmm.
So, um, and different meaning, maybe not so different. Like right now, we're looking at a face with some abstract stuff around it. That doesn't necessarily make this very different from anything, but I think different overall in the energy or the types of things that I feel like are in the narrative of the pieces. It's all very subtle. There isn't really, I don't know, the storytelling of it isn't always very obvious. It's very metaphorical, if that makes sense to you. So hmm, I don't know. I just feel like that journey of it becoming more um, allowing the the me part of it to show through and not to worry about what I think it has to be or need to be.
Yeah,
That's when it started to be its strongest. And it continues on because obviously I know I can grow still. I know there will always be an evolution throughout my entire life. So there's no stop. There's no stopping. There's no, I've got it, and I think you understand, like, there's no, like, I've learned it all. Like, I feel every day, like, there's so much I have to learn still.
yeah,
What else can I learn? So
yep.
yeah.
One of the things that in reading your book, I loved how you talked about, art as this, it's a personal journey, yes, but then there's reflection and introspection. It's kind of this consciousness of opening up to these other realms of the subconscious, but at the same time, then what does that mean? Kind of re-asking yourself. It's that internal dialogue, I think, which is most interesting.
Yeah, the internal dialogue is really interesting, I think, as a part of an acceptance that this is a valid way of not only working, but of working through things, just not even just art, but just everything, that you can have more confidence and believe more in the internal voice or your inner world, your experiences that you reflect on to help you work through or into a new thing, whatever it is, or overcome something. That all of that is definitely, there's a strength in that. There's a strength in allowing the vulnerability. That is strong. um, and that is strong to also be allowing that to be so prevalent in your work. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, that we tend to shy away from the sharing of that, thinking that, I don't know, all kinds of things. I think in my own, I can speak for myself where I say it feels like self-indulgent and is it too much that, or am I wrong, and so is this should I even share this because maybe this is not a thing that people will agree with or something. But I think that's also a part of all of it too, is that it could cause some disagreement. And
Hmm.
that are you uh, strong enough to put something out there and hold your own and where and stand your ground and that kind of thing. I've been told that I'm brave for sharing myself the way that I do in my work, and I think I don't know any other way. But
Hmm.
I suppose when I think about what bravery is, we can think of bravery as like the way movies depict it, like
Hmm.
someone that's strong and standing on the top of a mountain and can
Yeah.
overcome anything. But I think bravery can also be this quiet strength too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think would, that whole aspect that we talked about in terms of vulnerability, I think
Mhm.
bravery is just not being afraid to just be. You
Yeah,
know
but
what
I
I
think it's also like there is a fear, but you just do it anyway.
mean? Hmm.
You acknowledge that you are fearful, but you
Hmm.
keep going. And that I think I understand more now that that is also bravery or a big part of what bravery is.
And
Like when it's been said, it's been in the context sometimes of, you know, like a gallery show or doing some different work. Like people know you as this thing, and then you did this completely different thing. You know, what the heck? How did you get so brave to just do that? And I think, well, because I wanted to. And I
Yeah.
don't know. I know that there was a lot of time, like I had a show, a solo show called Liminal Beings at Copro Gallery. And that show, a lot of the work, I started doing the work when I didn't know that I had a show for it.
Hmm.
And when I was doing it, I thought, what the heck is this stuff? You know, I didn't even know what was happening. Every day I would show up and paint it and think, oh my God, I'm so drawn to this. I have to make it. I
Hmm.
can't wait to get to my easel again and work on it. But I also was like, I don't even know what this is. I don't
Hmm.
even, none of it was figurative. None of it was, you know, anything a lot of it in the this kind of stuff out here, you
Yep.
know, was in it. But this part of it was, there was nothing that was, you know, something that people could relate to in this way that we look at, you know,
Right.
what um, the outward appearance of a physical being or something looks like. So it
Hmm.
was more about the inside of us.
Yep.
So yeah.
I think too, and you had kind of just touched base on that, whatever's going on, in our life, we bring into our work subconsciously. We just do. And when you're, whether you have a certain energy that you're making marks with, or maybe it's something literal, that adds to a story, or even how we take a direction, how we choose, maybe there's a point in the abstraction that you choose to pull out. All of
Yeah.
that comes to what we're dealing with, or what we feed ourselves. I think
Yeah.
as artists, we kind of just take, oh, okay, my rest of my life, and then I just come in the studio and I paint. But our food for thought, like what we feed our brain, what we allow into our world, that
Hmm.
does definitely make a difference in what we do. So my question to you is, what are the things you read? What are the things you bring in? Like, what do you look at, or what do you listen to?
Oh wow. Well, I mean, gosh, that's like so much. I think it just the whole compilation of all of that gets thrown into how it shows up in my work. It's not just something I'm reading, although it could be that. It's not just something like there could be something I'm seeing in the news. I
Yep.
watch a lot of different, you know, videos and things like that. But I also really don't look a lot at things online and
Hmm.
internet,
Hmm.
or I don't look a lot at videos. And I really more right now very much focused on just trying to be healthy, healthy mindset about things, healthy obviously physically as well, going for walks, meditating, yoga, that kind of stuff. Um, and then what I see in my everyday, you know, when I do that, and it's always different. There's, you know, been some really amazing summer storms lately that I've been able to be, you know, viewing and taking part in, and on my walks that just suddenly happen. And
Yeah.
then you're out there and you just kind of duck under a tree and just sit
Yeah.
there and you think this is amazing, you know.
Yep.
And so all of that kind of gets put into my work. And I think humans, the humans around me, the humans interaction, I see um in all kinds of ways, and that really is an influence too. Um, Music. I like all kinds of music. I think I tend to be drawn to things that are uh, maybe what people would consider melancholy.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
it's just the pace that I like a lot of, and the
Yeah.
lyrics a lot of times. And if there's no lyrics, just the mood or the energy that I get from it.
Right.
Um, yeah.
More contemplative in nature.
Yeah, I actually do have, you know, it's a pretty modest Spotify account, but I have made some Spotify playlists that are they're formed by the making of whichever painting is the thing that is the cover album of, or you know, the cover of that playlist.
Mhm.
So you can
Oh,
find them
that's
on
cool.
my
So
Spotify
you
account.
have like, in other words, you put together like a playlist and then the album, you
Cover.
put a painting that was listened to while you were working on it.
Yeah, or sometimes I made them later, but yes, out of knowing that I did listen to some of that music, but I made a playlist that I felt like really described that painting as well. So it's like
Oh,
two different directions. Yeah.
yep.
And so you can find those. There's a few there. There's not a lot, but um it's they're, you know, I feel that I make playlists all the time when I'm going to be doing a painting. I'll set up different kinds of music I want to listen to for
Mhm.
that painting. I don't just listen to like random music that doesn't have to do with the energy or the mood that I want in
Right,
the painting. It has to
right.
be there too. Yeah. So,
Well, painting is rhythmic, right? It's very lyrical. And just like when we hear music, our body wants to dance, we want to
yeah.
move with a paintbrush or
Yeah.
a scraper or, whatever it is that you're doing. It makes sense, that music is definitely, or sound interpretation comes into that piece in some way. And it's a conscious thing. And I think it's interesting that you almost in your own way diary that, you know what I mean, like by
Yeah.
keeping those things. I think that's something then you can later kind of go back and say, oh yeah, I get that, I can get back into that feeling. And it kind of reminds me of, every now and then I'll hear a song from like college or high school and it just brings back memories.
Mm-hmm.
Does that happen to you? Like,
It
do you start
does.
with a painting, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it does. I think that's very much like how, you know, you were just describing that. I feel like that those playlists are the same way, where I feel like, oh wow, I remember, yeah, I felt
Yeah.
this. I listened to this at that time and I really felt this. And it does shift, it does change. I don't always listen to that music anymore, you know.
Mhm.
So I do get that. I do also sometimes I find that I would love to capture what it is that this song or album or, you know,
Mhm.
kind of, you know, playlist of music does for me.
Yeah.
So I will put a playlist together that is something I want to try to
Capture.
emulate
Yeah.
or portray in the work
Yeah.
that I am doing. So that helps to set that mood too.
Yeah.
So there's all kind of reasons why I would make a playlist too. But yeah, it's uh, and it's all over the place. Some of it might be weird, you know. Some of it might be like, oh, that's I don't know if I would listen to that, you know, song very much. But I could see how it goes with this
Yeah.
album or this painting. Yeah.
Yeah. It's something like sometimes I'll do that like with a color. It's not like my favorite, but it's like, hey, I'm gonna make myself use this. So let's figure it out. Let's make it look like something. It's
Yeah.
throwing a monkey wrench into it and seeing where that takes you.
Yeah, I've done that for sure. I've did that a lot during pandemic.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
thinking, I've never used this tube of, you know, violet. Like, what? Like it's
Exactly.
just not a color I really use. And I have this really awesome color. And so I started using it a lot during pandemic. And I even
Yeah.
had people like comment like, wow, this is a different color scheme for you.
Yeah.
But it does also, you know, add something new and different to your work, which is
Yeah.
cool. Might
Now,
even make you work differently.
oh, totally. Totally.
Yeah.
It's just like the same thing. You switch up the tool, you switch up the surface, you switch up the colors or the
Mm-hmm.
energy. Everything's going to have, I mean, it always comes back to you, but it's just going to bring you in a little bit of a different path, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, what have if you'd say looking at, your history as an artist, are there been any big influences or big aha moments or anything that kind of sticks out to you that kind of either crystallize something or gut you onto kind of a different path? Anything in that, thinking back?
I think a really significant one, to be very honest, is the death of my dad.
Ah,
And not to, you know, I hate that I bring this up because I know that some people can be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go into that. But it's really important because it's in a different way than thinking about it the way that just it's just a death, which is a heavy thing and you know,
mhm,
but it's
mhm.
all the things involved with it, the
Yeah.
way that all of us that are left over here, still
Mhm.
here, work with it and
Yep.
grieving and what that means um and seeing him still, you know, and thinking about the different things that I wish were said or, you know,
Yeah.
not said, or
Mhm.
also the great moments, the hard moments, all of it.
Yep.
And then just seeing that come out. And then knowing that I want to also do that with things that are still here, you know,
Mhm. Mhm.
so not, maybe we could say not take things for granted or that kind of
Right.
thing. Makes you
Yep.
aware of that kind of thing.
Yep.
But how special that is. But also when you think about art and the making a piece, there's this realization that you're able to spend time with a person in this way right here.
Yep.
Here. I'm here.
Yep.
Well, I mean, you and I are here, you know, and we get to
Yep.
do that.
Yep.
But also on this other level, like I'm spending time with a lot of people while I'm making a piece of art. And they're
Mhm.
just showing up randomly, you know, and it's
Mhm.
not random.
Mhm.
It's a, you know, an ode to the non-linear lifestyle because
Yep.
it's
Yep.
very much, I am a very much non-linear person.
Me too.
And that's where this all comes in, you know, it all gets thrown in at all, you have no idea. And then you think, oh yeah, that makes sense why that just popped into my head. And then
Yep.
you start working it out in your head,
Yep.
and that was what you needed to do, and that's why it's here. And then you think,
Yep.
well, that's strange. And then you just painted this whole section of a painting while you were doing that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
So,
I feel this way, and I know you do as well, that art is really about working things out in our life. It's about healing ourselves,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
not talking about something is, keeping it inside is
Mm-hmm.
not a healthy thing. When you talk or you paint something, you know what I mean? You're kind of taking what's inside and putting it somewhere. So you're not, everything's not so bottled up. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You have an outlet to take some of what are feeling and putting it somewhere and then, seeing where that takes it. So I definitely think as artists, the more we can be honest with ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Honest with each other, it gives others, it inspires others. Okay. And that's where I feel you as an artist are definitely, like a guardian of light because you inspire others to be themselves. And that's a gift, right? If you're
I,
inspiring other people just to be themselves in their work and to let that part of themselves be present, you know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
What else? I mean, someday we're all not going to be here. We have very little time, right, to be with our art, to be with each other, to be with others. So the more that we can take the opportunity, and you've learned that, your work has taught you that, spend
Yeah.
time, learn, and then now you're saying that's now feeding into other parts of your life
Mm-hmm.
that you
Mm-hmm.
need to do that. And that's a gift. I mean, because some people can go through their whole life and, kind of be more focused on the worldly things, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The worries of this, of that, taking care of, cleaning this, da da da, and never really getting the opportunity through whatever form of expression they want to do it in to really know themselves and the people that are around them. So it leads to my next question. I've always been an admirer of artists that are also great teachers. Okay. I think we are, as artists, can be messengers of some sort. And I always loved Howard Pyle and Harvey Dunn.
Mm-hmm.
They've, obviously had amazing students who became incredible artists and incredible teachers. We all know that. But the thing, even as predominantly, and we say predominantly illustrators, okay, because they were teachers of illustrators, they were illustrators, very commercial artists. But if you look at the writings about what they have said,
Mm-hmm.
things like, let the work lead the way, the best of our work comes within. So when we talk about, even as illustrators, so if we get beyond the fine art where we do art for ourselves, even as illustrators, some of the grand, you could call Pyle and Dunn the grand poopah of illustration teachings, right?
Yeah.
Even they're saying the best parts, it comes from within. Paint what you know, paint what you feel, because if you're going to get somebody to feel something,
Mm-hmm.
you need to feel something.
Yeah.
And I think that's all the stuff that you talk about, with your work. And I think that's something I'd like to hear your thoughts on all this.
I think that the paint what you know can be interpreted in a way that could make some people intimidated by never wanting to share their work because they feel they don't know enough. Who am I to share what I know? I'm just whatever. I get
Mhm.
that way, and then I think that's not what paint what you know means.
Right.
And then you start to realize, oh, wait a second. I am painting what I know when
Yep.
I start to get like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything. you know, then you're really truly being yourself. You're
Yep.
really truly allowing that to be in the work. That's a part of your process. I
Yep.
go over this all the time with myself. I think probably every piece has this moment of, oh my God, I overworked it. I did all this stuff. What did I do? What am I even doing? I'm doing it again. That thing
Yeah.
that I said, all of that. And then I think, oh, that's a part of it.
Yep.
That's a part
Yep.
of myself and it shows. It shows in
Yep.
my work. There is
Yep.
no perfection in
Yes.
my work. There's no like over polished anything. If there is, I wreck it a lot of the time. And that becomes maybe some added time on the piece, but super important for me, to me, that it would be, uh, you know, shifted if I feel
Hmm.
like I over rendered something.
Hmm.
Or it doesn't, that part doesn't, it's not like I'm saying that about anyone else's work. It's just
Right.
myself.
Yep.
That is all a part of me. That is all a part of the process that I go through every time I make a piece is this. I start without knowing what's going to happen.
Hmm.
I might have an idea of what's going to happen because I know what these tools and these materials and all that stuff is going to happen, but I don't know really all the time what I'm going to paint.
Yep.
And even when I've done things that are illustration that I needed to do for a job that are, requiring you to do like certain passages in a book, there's still not knowing what the image is going to look like. I don't know. Sometimes it'll be a dream. Sometimes I'll have a dream in the middle of the night. I'll go, "Oh my God, that's it."
Yep.
That's what I needed to work out. And it came out in this, frustrating way that I was overdoing it, overworking it, doing thumbnails, doing all this crazy stuff. And then I,
Yep.
just am finally exhausted, just allowing myself to
Yep.
rest and, take some time to sleep, and then
Yep.
I go, bing,
Yep.
there it
Yep.
is.
Yep. It's like
And
there's like little men inside, right? Like the brain is like it's taking all the things, like you said, everything that you're thinking about, stuff during your day, what you're trying to solve, and it's kind of like this collage, put everything in the mix, and then it's like stuff comes out from that, I
yeah,
think it's kind of an interesting thing. And I think too, when you talk about your process and about the layers, and if there's quote unquote, if you even want to call them mistakes or whatever,
Mm.
that's all part of the journey.
Mhm.
Who goes through life in literal perfection? Like, life isn't perfect. It's just not. And our life is a sequence of moments. And so
Mhm.
that's true for our paintings, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe this is the thing that we all need to think about redefining, or really truly thinking about what that word perfect means. Maybe
Yeah.
perfect means to allow all of it to show up, to allow perfect would be to allow everything, to allow all the moments, all the things we think are imperfect or that are mistakes, and that would be perfect. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that would be really perfectly what we all are.
Yeah.
It's like that we contain all of this,
Yeah.
and we are a part of just a huge thing that's messy and
Yep.
beautiful and
Yep.
amazing, and
Yep.
that's what perfect is, to
Yep.
contain all that, you know,
And I think with
or to be a part of all that, I guess.
if we called it the perfect imperfections or whatever it is, I think that is more relatable to people, okay, than having something completely sterile. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The When people can find their own vulnerabilities or their own feelings in something that they see. I mean, that's what we look towards when we listen to great music or a movie that we get out of and we go, shit, I'm just changed from this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's movies that kind of just wash through you. And sometimes if they have too comfy of a seats, I fall asleep. And then there's
Right.
like other movies where I'm just like, oh my God, wow,
Yeah, it might have been super long, but it felt like it went by super fast because you're
yeah.
just enthralled the entire time. Yeah.
And the same thing, like when you were talking about music, I know exactly what you mean. There's things that I've heard, it's some instrumental stuff, and I go, I wish I could just paint the way this makes me feel. It's
Mm-hmm.
just so emotive, you know what I mean? And there is something within that. And even I think I was watching something, it was about I forgot the name of the ballet dancer. But ballet, it's something that we have to practice like this sort of perfection. And when this particular, I wish I could remember the name, this particular ballet dancer moved, he wasn't perfect, but there
Mm.
was just something about the way he moved his body.
The emotive kind of way.
It just,
Yeah.
even within a field or a genre
Mm-hmm.
that is built upon, here, practice these perfect steps type of thing. The
Mm-hmm.
best of the best is what you were saying, that imperfect perfection. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The beauty in expressing your imperfection in a beautiful way
Yeah.
is, I think,
Yes.
what we're kind of, maybe thinking about. Now, there was something else we talked about paintings as being like healing and having this personal way of helping us. But what if we talk now about the viewer? Like, are there things that once your work is complete, after it's kind of gone through your own experience and your own filter and your own process, that you kind of want your work to convey? Like, is it message driven? Do you see that there's a message you want to say to the outside world in any sense?
I'm not sure if I could say that I'm thinking about that when I'm working, but I can say that if I felt like it went out into the world and I felt it didn't, uh, I think it's about integrity. If I
Mhm.
felt that it didn't um, represent me in the way that I felt was authentic to me,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want that to be out there. And that's just mostly yeah, it still comes down to my own world and my own like working through things here on my own work.
Yep. Yep.
It doesn't have I don't think about the viewer at that time And
Mhm.
when I do, I think that's when I start to overwork things, or, I think I see myself when I overwork things, I can nail it down to a few things. Usually it'll be that I started to render something too
Yep.
much, or,
Mhm.
and that becomes more of like a proving I'm capable of, doing something with
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
what it, why am I doing that? My gosh. But then, that was supposed to be there. Then you work through that. You find whatever it is that you needed to get out of your system, and you make it, find the balance of
Yep.
bringing it back to what you felt like you lost, and that
Yep.
needed to be a part of it. But I don't know that as a way of conveying something. It's just more that there would be an integrity that I wanted to make sure that I didn't, lose.
Right.
Um, so, like, I wouldn't want to do an ad for cigarettes, let's say.
Right.
Like,
Right.
that would be
Right. Right.
something that I
Yeah.
wouldn't do. I just
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
But that's like a silly kind of example, but I think hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, what I was really mostly thinking about, because I think about the book, right? And I see, after you finish the painting and I see you've written something there, you're saying something with that writing. It's
Hmm.
communicating. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's something there that maybe it's you saying, this is my, personal story. This is where I've come from in this.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a connective tissue for you there too. Like I see there's a search for that kind of connection.
Hmm.
And so if you could talk to us about maybe the writing and what that process for you was and how that either relates to like the way your process works in painting, or was it a completely different experience for you?
Well, I think that you know, this somehow became a marriage of something, where I felt that I never was going to share any of my writing with anybody. So it could be whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And then I was like, I think I need to do the more of that with my painting, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
And then when I needed to be doing the book, I saw there were things that I obviously needed to clean up, or um, fix in terms of how it read, if it flowed, or if it was paired with a painting across the page, if that made sense with that painting, obviously, that
Right,
kind of
right.
thing. Um, they weren't necessarily written for that painting. Some of them were. I have one called the Bob Tree, and that definitely is on the other side, written to him as well. That was somebody that passed away years ago, and I painted that painting of him, which he just shows up in every nook and cranny of that painting. There's probably 100 of his faces in there,
Mhm.
and that little writing was something I did at the time, where he was showing up in everything, and I realized how magical that is. That I can see him still, you know, talking to me. I can see him still in a lot of things, in a lot of ways, in
Mhm.
everything around me.
Yep.
So that things still live on, people still live on. We can be with people if we want to, just
Right.
by, connecting in the ways that we were familiar with them, doing something with them, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, oh man, with the writing, I felt like I was also nervous to put it out there, because a lot of it's just journal entries. And so it was not, again, perfect, that word. It was there, the writing isn't written in a way that was meant to be shared at first. And then how much do I fix it? How much do I leave it? So there's a
Mhm.
lot of, uh, different grammatical things that are odd in there. And I feel like that's part of the magic of it. And I left it, or, I fixed it if I felt like it should be. Um, but a lot of it's very personal. A lot of it's about um, having conversations with myself, like I do with my art, and working through things, overcoming things. seeing myself, or at least um, trying to show up in a new way, but not knowing what that is. And just sometimes just, spewing things out, just a stream of consciousness gets it out of the system, and then you get back to what you were doing and move on. So I do treat painting the same way. Sometimes, my paintings aren't brought up in a way where I draw them out and I fill it in, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
finished when it's filled in.
yeah,
It changes so much throughout the process,
yeah.
and so does my writing. My writing will do the same thing. Sometimes it'll come out really fast and be done, and then other
Mhm.
times it's like I'm still working through something and I'll have a lot more to add to it.
So
And
you keep a regular journal? Do you write every day?
I write frequently. I don't know about every day, but pretty frequently. And then
Yeah,
sometimes I'll go for a while not writing, but then I'm
yeah,
doing other things. Like I'm doing a lot of watercolor sketches in the morning for whatever reason,
yeah, 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 yeah,
and then other times I'm writing, like just
yeah.
constantly writing. I can't stop writing. Yeah. So it kind of changes.
I really love the fact that you made the decision and we use the word to be brave, with the painting that you're doing that with your writing. You know what I mean? I think it when we are, we're artists, but then there's a lot of other people, okay, because more than just artists buy our books, right? Um,
Mhm.
they're word people. So when you have, the word, it kind of sets the stage for where they have an entry place into the painting too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh,
And
yeah.
I love the way that you wrote it because it reminds me there's like I don't know, I can't remember if there's a name to it, but there's kind of a stylized way of poetry where you break away from like the typical rules of like poetry, you know what I mean? So you've got like this
Yes.
hybrid of prose poetic and I love the fact that you say nonlinear. That's how I feel. Like the writing and the art shares that kind of synergy, you know what I mean? They
Hmm.
kind of really nicely work in tandem. And I think if it would have just been the work, I think it just like it brought it to another level for me.
Oh, that's great. I love hearing that. I wonder when people get the book, if they, I mean, I think some people know that I work for, or I write for Muddy Colors. And so
Yeah.
there's that kind of writing there. And some people know that, know me personally. And so they maybe know my writing. But that's rare. I don't really share a lot of my writing. And then there I put it in a book for
Yep.
it to be
Yep.
there with the art. But I felt like it needed it. Like it went together. Like it needed
Yes,
to
it
be
totally
together.
did. It
Yeah.
totally did. And I love the way you did it. I love the way it is, and it's kind of a conversation.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And I kind
Hmm.
of love that. And I know that it's a way of connecting. And I think that's something that I think, moving forward, I would just say I'd love to see more of the writing too. You know what I mean? Like in any
Oh,
way,
cool.
whether it's muddy color articles, more the writing, not the writing about like process, you know what I mean?
Right. Oh, yes, I understand.
But
My
like
Muddy Colors
writing,
articles are less process and more. I've talked to Dan about it too, where sometimes I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Or should I even be doing this? He's like, yes, yes, yes. Keep doing it.
yeah,
It's different
yeah.
and we want you to do it. So and that's really nice of him to be that way about it and supportive. Because I do get worried that, am I just this weird person that painted that
And
shares these weird posts
yeah, well, here's the
sometimes?
thing. You always don't seem to, what we always don't know is because if somebody doesn't comment back, we
Oh
feel like
yeah.
we're just talking to like nobody. You know what I mean? It's like it feels that way sometimes,
Hmm.
but then there's going to be periods of time that people either are going to email you or that you might show up, somewhere and say, wow, that really touched me. But they didn't feel brave to say anything. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
yeah, on a public way too, for sure. I get that.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So but it doesn't mean that it didn't do something for somebody. And so I think just seeing where you're going with that, I would just say, just keep going. I loved it. I thought it just added it, just like I said, it just kicked everything up like another notch.
Oh, that's neat. Well, I also wanted to add to anyone who does comment on Muddy Colors, first of all, thank you, because it is rare, like you said. But also that if you comment and we don't comment back, a lot of times I'll check like for a few days and then I'm like,
Yeah,
well, I think people probably aren't going to comment. And then I'll
yeah,
see like someone commented like a year later on something
yeah,
that, and I think, oh shoot, I don't know. I didn't know that, I didn't check.
yeah,
Because we
yeah.
get all these weird other spammy things on there that
Yeah, and you know
show
what I
up.
think we need? I don't know if it has it, but we need to get a notification if somebody, like, it needs to email us.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. I think it might go, but it only goes to like who runs the,
Yeah, right.
yeah,
That's true. That's true. So
which
one of the other things that I wanted to talk about is you feel a very strong connection, and I love the story that you told about the rain and being present in the storm,
oh,
is your connection to nature and how that's kind of evolved and influenced your work and your process.
oh wow. Well, I feel like yes, an evolution, but at the same time, it brings me back to when I was a kid and I would go out and my sister and I would go in the fields and we lived at the end of a street that was it goes into what we call the field and like that was where we're going to the field and then that like had these trails that went off it was very oaks lots of oaks everywhere very just away from everything. Like it was just
Mhm.
a nature, like away from all any kind of neighborhood or anything. You felt like suddenly you were just in nature, immersed.
Yep.
And um, we spent a lot of our time out in there. A lot of time swimming, a lot of time going out to the river. From that field, we could keep walking and go to the river, the American River up in Northern California. And then just adventuring all the time out in nature. And I've just done that really my whole life, ever since I was a kid. And so I don't know, sometimes it brings me back to something, as opposed to bringing me to something that um, am adding. It's like
Yep.
it shows me, a world that I had lost touch with and needed to get back to, or a reminder that how we're all connected in this way, or, all kinds of things that nature does for us. Nature also is like just huge in the way that it shows up abstractly in my work.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a flow of very earthy, watery types of um, emotional, metaphor driven imagery.
Yep.
So whatever I feel from those kinds, I mean, we could say water, but what is water? It could represent so many different emotions. You
Exactly.
know, there's a stormy sea, there's a calm creek. Like
Yep.
there's,
Yep.
yeah. So it could be all kinds of things, and that alone could just guide your work forever. It's like, and that's just
Yeah.
one element. So I feel that shows up a lot, just subconsciously because of how much time I have spent in nature and it's just very important to me. Um,
I love Vanessa has a wonderful intro section in her book, and there's a beautiful picture, just absolutely stunning picture of you in nature, and you're just kind of holding on to a tree like it's your friend, you know?
yeah,
And
my sister took that.
I just love that picture. And there's a connection there.
Hmm.
It's not just being like a part of it, but kind of respect. It's also like a friend. Like, you talk about it like that's where you played. That was like a friend, like a reminiscence of things. Uh,
Hmm.
I recently watched this series on Netflix called The Secret World of Sound, and I was completely blown away because it was literally about how animals and plants and bugs all are connected through this energy. And, people sometimes I also paint intuitively, I begin like abstractly
Mhm.
myself. And sometimes I feel like when you talk about that, and, maybe people can kind of see it as like, it's like, you, there's nothing, your work talks to you, there can be kind of like, I don't know, I can't even describe the word. Uh,
Woo.
yeah, like woohoo,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And as I started to really get into, because what they have is they have the technological innovation to capture sound that we no longer could hear, that we never could hear, or vibrations or energy, and actually capture it now because of the technology. And just seeing what the animals are capable of. An
Mm.
elephant can use his foot to know when there's a storm like 500, miles away, and know where to walk to water. And, I mean, just in innate sense. So I'm wondering, when we are painting, as artists, and we are tapping into an energy, and it's being driven by the things that are going on in our subconscious. It might be driven on by music we're listening to, or just, this complete mix of everything that's kind of going on, like we do in the dream state, is
Mhm.
maybe we are tapping into a certain energy, right? Like
Yeah.
something, maybe it's like literally could be, not that I'd ever want to do it, but to, use technology to kind of see it there. And I did watch this one show quite a while ago, and it was about creativity and how people are creative and what are the things that kind of set up, during creativity. And that was kind of interesting because it didn't get into like step one, step two. That it wasn't like that. It was again this sort of energy, this flow that people feel. It's like you
Mhm.
kind of know that you're in love, right? You feel it. You know when you're in flow, you know when you're connecting with something you're working on. And then I feel like when you were saying, oh, it was getting too perfect or too overworked, I just feel that for me translates into a world that says I wasn't connected anymore. You know what I mean?
Yes. That's
Like
exactly it.
like you got out of the flow of the energy of what was going on, that maybe
Yeah.
that's really there, and it's not frou-frou or whatever, and it's really there because there was just
Yeah.
too many examples of what's going on in nature. I mean, between the just even the density of the air and the coldness of the air that's lower, and how lions will roar to get further in the colder air. I mean, it was just like knowing all these things. Like there's
Mm.
science behind this. And so it just started making me think that even though I still trust in that flow and I trust in that process, it just further defined for me, or somehow connected for me, that it's just not me doing my thing, that I
Yeah.
am connecting to something. I don't know what it is, but I know when I'm there.
Yes.
I know when I have the right energy. I
Yes.
know when I have to stop when it doesn't exist anymore. Even if I need to continue, I have to take a break. I have to do something to re-engage. I mean,
Yes.
it's it's knowing. It's sense of knowing. So I was just curious, like, of what your thoughts about all that was.
Well, I just agree with pretty much everything you were just saying. It is that when you do feel that, um, I lost it, I overworked, I whatever, overthought
Yeah.
things, anything like that. It is the lack of connection. You lost the connection for a minute. And the connection can be something that is a vibration or a magnetic kind of feeling. But it also can just be that you were completely immersed and lost in it, that
Yep.
you everything else dropped away and you were just there.
Yep.
You weren't thinking about what you were working on in the
Yeah.
sense of like whether it was right or wrong or what you had to fix or
Right.
add to
Right.
or whatever. You just were going with it.
Yep.
But also that there was at the moment, in similar to meditation, although I do feel like it's a different kind of meditation than sitting and meditating, but
Mhm.
that's similar to that in the way that you're not trying to let go of everything that's in your mind. You
Mhm.
allow it to come in, allow it to be there, allow it to leave when it needs to leave,
Yep.
and then when it does stay there for a minute, and this is when you may have lost the connection in the painting, you go, okay, what's that all about? And maybe
Mm.
stop for a second and then kind of regain your composure or whatever with the work that you're doing,
Yeah.
and maybe even for me, step away, go for a walk, anything like that, just to snap out of that whatever it was that kind of came in. But
Right.
it's so it can come in so many different ways. I don't have like an exact kind of perfect like one way that it happens. But I can see it show up in the overworking a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the time,
Yep.
and um, or if there's a like a memory or a conversation you had that you wish you would have said something differently or something.
Yeah.
When that starts
Yeah.
to show up in your work, in your mind as you're working, you're kind of like, okay, this
Yeah.
is gonna like interfere with what's happening. And in some ways it does show up. It like gets worked out here too, and it can be creating some weird chaotic thing happening in your painting, and you might fight it. I do that. Where I'll think, oh my God, what was I doing? I spent the last like 40 minutes,
Yeah.
working on this area, and, just
Yeah.
getting into this tiny little area.
Yeah.
Um, and then thinking, well, maybe that's what that area needed. I don't
Yep.
know. Even if it
Yep.
was to wreck it and find something new in it again, that's
Yep.
a part of it all. So, yeah.
Yep. And I think that way too when it comes to color. Like I see certain painters and they get everything all planned out. They get all like, in other words, everything's like all pre-mixed. And I mean, I'll put the paint on, then I start mixing some things, but then it's like a one big jumbled mess. Like I'm like dipping into different color. I mean, it's never like super organized, like put this here. And so I think when I'm doing stuff, it's just like what the color feels like when I put it. Nope. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
that mark. It's feel it. You know what I mean? It's like when you're putting something down, it's not like I'm seeing it and saying, okay, this is what I need to put down. The
Yeah.
language, and I'm curious to what goes on in your mind, the language is it's always feel. It's a language of feeling. Like
Yeah.
when somebody turns the
Yes.
music on and you don't do a choreographed dance, but your body just starts moving, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
Hmm.
there's no music oftentimes, like when I'm working. So it's not like I'm moving to some kind of music in the studio, but it's a feeling. And that's
Hmm.
all I can describe. It's just like it's a feeling that it needs this. I just I don't think it. I feel it. And it comes
Yeah, I think
through
that
in that
comes
way.
from a few things, though. I think it comes from an understanding that you have quite a bit of knowledge in that way. But it's not like you're going, well, what this needs now is, you're just feeling it now,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
that's where you are. It's like going into a drawing from a model and saying and starting to put the construction lines in. At some point you don't have to do that anymore. You just draw the drawing, like you've
Yeah.
done enough of the construction drawings
Yeah.
underneath the drawing, and you're at a point where it's that you want more energy in the life of the person you're drawing in there, and you don't need to show yourself or anyone else that you
Mhm.
understand the the figure abstraction.
Yeah. Yeah.
The understanding shows up in the drawing you're doing, you
Yeah.
know?
And
So
it doesn't
color,
even
same thing.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be, sometimes I'll look at something and go, well, that could never really be, the whether it's somehow the lighting or whatever. And I go, wait a minute, if it works as a design and it feels right, it's right. That
Mhm.
was something I kind of had to teach myself where, I came from an illustration background. So it's like you'd always be thinking in your head, but that could never happen in real life. But we're not, who cares? Because I'd rather have it look good and be
Yeah.
interesting to look at than be real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of
But I
people
think there's that
feeling.
balance. There is a
Yeah,
balance. Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. And it's better to find the line, find the line that's, where the face meets the abstraction. Like if you look at the piece that you've got right now, you're
Hmm.
finding the energy. You're starting with a line that comes from the face and it comes out in the energy of what's
Hmm.
going on in the rest of the piece.
Yeah.
And I also think, the process, and I kind of call it a push-pull process, and I've seen you work before,
Yeah.
is, that scraping back, adding on, until like something comes to form and then you kind of pull it out from that. Can you
Hmm.
talk about what's kind of just going on in your mind? Like, because we obviously make decisions along the way with those kind of marks. When you're, scraping back on something, is there a feeling that's each one of the tools that you use, and in the way you either use additive or subtractive processes, is there something that you're feeling at that same time?
Yeah. I think it comes from a feeling. I think that like the decision making, whether it's not that it's like you're sitting there going deciding,
Right, right,
but
right, right.
but that you feel that this needs to flow this way, or this needs this color over here, just because, but also because of the composition of the colors, or that, or that color, the color scheme you have right now, there's something missing in it, like it doesn't really portray also the mood that you feel like it should, that kind of thing too, which I think is really big with me.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, it could be a lot of things,
Hmm.
as to why I might just cut through something and start again. Or when I say start again, I don't mean like completely lose everything, but I could just
Right.
take, I mean,
Yep.
if this weren't wet and I hadn't been working on it, I could just take mark making across this again and just paint
Yep.
over it and like pick out again and
Yep.
find it again. And that is a part of it to me. That's a part of the process. It could happen, and it was supposed to happen because I felt like I needed to lose something about it, and the losing isn't is yeah, is a part of it. It isn't that I need to wreck it completely or erase it completely and start over, but
Yep.
that there isn't really a starting over. It's also just a part of it. It's
Yep.
just a chapter two,
Yep.
and it's one
Exactly.
big novel, and yeah.
Yep. Exactly. One of the things I know you use a lot of different kinds of tools and a lot that you kind of take that exist or existing tools and you kind of alter them. I know for me, and I'm just curious, for you, is some of the tools for me I mean, you could call them effects, but I call them languages,
Mm,
feeling. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, I know that there's going to be certain tools I'm going to want to pick up because I'm on a vibe. It's almost like
Yeah.
when you're putting together an outfit, like you just wouldn't just certain things you get like you're starting to put together something you're going to wear and you add on things that you kind of feel go with that vibe. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And so I feel like for me, when I'm picking up certain kind of tools, yeah, I could probably make some interesting marks, but I know enough of the tools that I'm working with that I go, no, that's not the vibe of this piece. You know what I mean? Like I kind
Mm,
of select tools ahead of time.
mhm.
And then sometimes in the midst of something, I might want to change up on something. So I'm just curious, do you feel like, your tools, like you're grabbing it? It's not a decision to make something very specific or that you can see it, but how is it for you in that inner dialogue? Is it like a vibe or a feeling that that mark's it's going to be like if you're a coach and you send that player out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's a good one. I like that analogy. Um, yeah, I find myself sometimes getting frustrated with the fact, oh, you know what? I keep using those tools. I want to do something different. you
Yeah.
know?
Uh-huh.
Um, I think that partly comes from instructing also and creating these courses I'm working on too. And then you don't want to, I mean, it's not that you don't want to, but you have a certain thing that you're showing. And if you start to throw. I'd love to try to throw every kind of mark making thing I've
Yeah,
ever done,
yeah,
in there, but it would
yeah,
take forever. That would be
yeah,
eternal.
yeah,
So there comes, the kind of like old familiar tools, that I know that I don't ever know exactly what's going to happen in everything I'm doing, but I know what these tools do. And so I
yeah,
know what kind of mark I can do based on how I
yeah,
hold it and how hard I
yeah,
press and how
yeah,
it's pressing against the surface in a certain way, all that kind of thing. Um, and there's hard edges, there's soft edges. I would use a spatula for like these kinds of things for hard edges that are really great. And then I would want to use obviously something more like this for soft edge or softening
yeah,
areas.
yeah,
I would never try to make a hard edge with this tool.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
So this is not the guy that you send in the game when you need a
yeah.
hard edge. So um yeah, but yeah, it's not I find myself actually wanting to do a lot of really different things. Sometimes it's just like a matter of creating some weird backgrounds or weird textures to work on, where
Yeah,
you go, okay, well, I got a problem solved. I think
yeah,
that's a big part of it. It's just
yeah,
like I want to make some problems for myself to have to
yeah,
solve,
yeah,
and
yeah,
let's see what happens because it'll make something new happen and I can't wait to see what that's going to be. That's
yeah.
more how I am a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because when I'm teaching, I call that the power of what if.
Yeah.
Is you put something down that you just was like, hey, it's just in the sketchbook. Nobody's going to care. You didn't spend a lot of money for this page, right? Or this
Oh
scrap
man.
surface. Put it down. And then like sometimes, because I hate throwing away anything. So I'll use up, the paint. I think it came from COVID when we couldn't get paper towels, but I started scraping when the
Mm,
paint's like, it's ready to go, it's not really going to be working so great. So I just started scraping it onto surfaces, and then that started creating other things and backgrounds and doing things I wouldn't have expected because I'm
yeah.
not mixing any colors. It's random, and it's that kind of power of play within the unexpected just to on things that aren't where you'd say, oh, I just spent some money on this surface and I don't want to, you get kind of more worried about it or whatever. But just
Yeah.
having those kind of moments, I think just makes you realize that I can make a painting out of anything. I mean,
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
really start thinking about it, and I like when I get excited about a mark. You know what I mean? Like, oh, look at this romaine lettuce leaf. What if I roll acrylic
Yeah.
on it and imprint it? I mean, I
Yes.
think for me, acrylics opens up, even though I introduce some oils after, I think acrylics opens up so many possibilities because its ability to dry. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Hmm.
Really quickly.
Absolutely. I work with
But
acrylics a lot too. Yeah. This painting or this panel just happened to be uh lead prime. So obviously I can't work with
yeah,
acrylics on that. But I
exactly.
do end up doing a lot of texture building and other things. And then just building the image, for a while. And then I might want to work with oil at the very end so I can continue to work on it and manipulate it for a couple days. But really, I work so thin with oil. I mean, everything that I've done today has been so small and thin. You can see that that's how I work.
Yeah,
So someone could be, I do the mark making and then I get into this area and it's like, yeah, but I wanted to see what you're gonna, well, no, that's how I bring it up. Like I'm gonna spend some time in this area and it's gonna
yeah,
be like
yeah,
calm and that's what I felt
yeah,
like today working on this one that I wanted to do.
yeah.
Um
And I
but
think I think too is you had mentioned about like when you're doing like for instance teaching or doing a demo, I will just bring in those odd things. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
I've just decided that I can go a route where yeah, I could come up with a finish, and like a single setting, or I can actually show people this is how I really do it. You know what I mean? Like and
Yeah.
where it's not always so like a plan because I get for me when I things start to get repetitive, even if the image is different, you want to start to change it up. And so I understand like when you're working on something, you're trying to figure it out. There's no like photograph you're looking at and saying, yep, this is all resolved and all I have to do is finish it.
Hmm. This
you're
is,
it's evolving, so it's never going to be like something that's just going to hammer out, you know what I mean? Like it's already resolved. It isn't. You've got to resolve it in that in within yourself.
hmm yeah.
And it takes
I've had
time.
like the dialogue sometimes where someone might take a course from me where, well, let's say it's an 8-week course. The first couple weeks are not even, there's no face there. But let's say it's a portrait painting class, but there's no
Yep,
face there yet because it's
yep,
imaginative realism portrait. That's how I paint a portrait. I
yep,
don't start with the portrait and then build, out from there. And
yep,
then someone might say, I've taken this class now for 2, 3 weeks and I haven't seen a face yet. And I'm like, well, this is the class you signed up for and you're going to
yep,
see it. It's going to show up.
yep,
I've
yep,
definitely talk about it. I talk about
yeah,
that showing up, but it's also like I have to, again, it's that integrity again of remembering that this is how I work. It
yeah,
may be different for this other person, but they did sign up for my class to find out
yep,
how I work. I'm not
yep,
trying to teach anyone else how someone else works.
yeah,
You know, this
yep,
is how I work.
yep,
Sometimes I'll draw a face first and do some marks on top of it. That's completely valid. That's completely a way to do it. And a lot of people are used to seeing it that way. But I
yep,
feel like I get this sense of looseness and
yeah,
unknown in having
yes,
something random that I
yep.
have to, find something in. And I love that. And it makes me do things differently. And I love that about it too.
And
And
it,
that's what I hope that people gain from that course.
yes,
Not
yep,
that how to say how to paint a face. Go on
yep,
YouTube, you're gonna find out how to paint a
right,
face and
yep,
for a lot. But a lot of different people will share that. But and in all kinds of ways. But and there's the sharing of allowing yourself to not know what's happening next and to be okay with that.
yep.
That's a part of what I'm trying to share when I
And
teach these
that's
classes.
where I think is the most valuable to the students, because what, not knowing that ahead of time, they think that as they start working, they're doing everything wrong. You see what I mean? They
Yeah.
think that you know exactly where everything's, no. You know what I mean? I think communicating and then seeing that, yeah, there's going to be a certain energy, it's going to last for a certain time, and then you're going to look at this tomorrow and you might go in a totally different direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so being okay with that gives somebody else, I think, the permission that they need, because that's what I think working in this way is
Yeah.
just being open to
Yeah.
what comes through, no matter
Yeah.
what it is, and
For
not
sure.
feeling that you got trapped into, you know, doing something. Because it's kind of funny, one of the students that uh just recently I was working on, I said, you just have to go back to doing you. Like, when they sometimes they overwork something, if you just go
Yeah.
back to just, okay, forget like, uh-oh, I have to look at the reference so much, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Put it aside, just
Right.
go with it. Be who you are, just feel you. And then that's when the painting just becomes magic, I always feel
Yeah. I agree.
always feel that. Now, I did want to talk about, I know I got a little inside scoop from Anton that you're going to be working on something that's large. Can you
Yeah.
talk about that? What are your plans for that?
Yeah. I have a few paintings that I'm working on, but this one is really large. It's more of like a mural in a way. It's 10
Wow.
feet, 10 feet wide. And it'll be an artifacts panel, which is exciting too. And it's a collaboration. So I will be working on it with the artist Mir, who is the artist who wrote the foreword in my book. So you can look him up and see his work and read that. I think he did a really wonderful job with that foreword. It made me get all choked up.
I know, I thought it was beautiful. It was such a synergy to everything in the book, I think, is just packaged. And one of the things that I think is just absolutely lovely is Vanessa has the back cover as the start, the abstract environment. And then she has on the cover, her vision of where that abstraction, that journey came, and what it was about. So I think that's just, again, it's just like another level, the front and the back, the
Yeah,
backstory. where something came from. So I think the book itself, Vanessa, has a lot of that symbolism and metaphors that your work seems to contain just within the design and the loveliness of the writing in the book itself. And I loved the forward. I absolutely loved it.
Oh,
Um,
that's great. I'm sure he'll love to hear that. You put a
yeah,
lot
we
of,
can include, I'll include
care
any
into it.
links. Yeah, I'll include any links too, so they can check out the work and, that type of thing. Now, I also wanted to talk about, because we did talk about sketchbooks, and I know
Yeah.
you work in a sketchbook, as well, and
Yeah.
if you could just talk to us about that and I don't know, maybe if we had time in the end, we can take a look at some of your sketchbooks. I know you shared quite a few of them on Muddy Colors, and I think I can add the links in the article so people can check them out. But for you, I know you journal. What are your sketchbooks about? Like, what is your intent?
Um, I feel like, um, again, allowing myself time to sort things through, to meet myself in that moment that I'm in, to and it shows up in abstract. I just start with some scribbles and start to draw. A lot of the times, a lot of my sketches now, sketchbooks have become just, lots. I have lots and lots of sketchbooks that are just very abstract.
Yep.
And I just kind of go and allow myself to go. And when I do, it's really about, yeah, that flow, that getting lost in the moment, and working things through. And then when they're filled up, it's just wow, that's
Yeah.
what the same thing with the liminal beings was like, what am I doing with it? What is this? And then when you have it all filled up, it's like, well, this was something, this is
Yep.
definitely a world that I just filled
Yeah.
this whole book with. And then now it's just become several books and many, many books. And in the book has a premium edition, and the premium edition has the some sketches in the back, and you can see some of those there. But yeah, I have a lot of Muddy Colors articles. I have some sketchbooks here that I could show to you. There are
Yeah.
faces in some, and I like to paint over words in text in books, and then let some of those words show up,
Yeah.
and allow those to create new sentences. And it's always very interesting to see what I create with those words, because I'm always thinking it would be neat to give different people the same page of text and then see what we all found in it. Like, it would be different,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that would show us kind of where we are in the moment, and something about ourselves that we may not see. Um, so I try to really listen to that, and I feel like they're like this really good friend that listens to you and reflects back to you. I feel like that's what sketchbooks are.
I love that.
Um,
I love that. I
yeah,
absolutely love that. It's so true because it's a place where you can just be yourself
yeah.
and it's listening. It doesn't expect, you know?
Yeah, it might show you some hard things though.
Yep.
But also that's what
Absolutely.
those really good friend does, is
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to hear those things, but you go, "Oh, hey, yes, I see that. Okay, here we go,"
Yeah.
and it's just a working through it. There's no right or wrong. There's no, in all of my sketchbooks, really, there's no trying to work something out in terms of a thumbnail, or anything like
Right.
that. It's usually just
Right.
sketching and going,
Yeah.
just going with
Yep.
whatever, all kinds of materials.
Now, I know for myself, well, half the time I end up ripping the pages out and then cutting them and doing all kinds of things because that's what I
Oh,
do.
yeah.
But do you find, because I know some of my friends, right? They say, well, when they work in the sketchbook, they have to bring it to finish. I
Oh,
bring
yeah.
like whatever energy comes, and then I might have a totally different energy another day, and I pick a page and I just start working on it. So do you kind of bring yours to finish, or do you just kind of work on it, as the moment is?
I feel like it all comes together as one piece, in the end. even if it might be really different and you feel like it's unrelated from page to page, it
Yeah,
ends up really being related, but you had no idea when you were doing it. Just keep going.
yeah.
And but yeah, I mean, you can do whatever with it. You can tear things out of it, you can put things in it, you can glue things and tape things to it and all that.
Yeah,
That's what I love about sketchbooks too. And
yeah.
sometimes I'll pick up, like you said, some of those, the thing that you don't want to wreck, where you think, oh, my sister gave me this sketchbook here. I just bumped this, sorry about that. Where it was just this kind of a cheap sketchbook. It's like just a cardboard piece
Yeah.
stapled
Yep.
together on the sides. And she was
Yep.
just like, oh, whatever. It says Hollywood on the back. I don't know what it was from. And I just like the size of it. I like that it was really just thin. And I think because I put the sticker on it, but I think because it was something that I didn't feel precious about,
Yeah.
I was like, whatever, let's see what I do if I do this. And it just became this really neat thing with all these kinds of sketches in that
Oh,
I
I love
actually
that.
love,
Yes.
but in the beginning was just again, this is more like my liminal being stuff where
Yep.
they're strange. I think when they're these kinds of pieces, I really believe um, they're emotions, like a conglomerate of emotions.
Yeah.
And it's not something you feel like there's an image that describes something perfectly, something we are familiar with. It's more like, well,
The
how would we describe this
yeah.
feeling? Well, this
Yep.
feeling is usually a combination of many feelings. It's hardly ever that, like,
Yeah.
sadness doesn't contain anything else in there. There's a
Yep.
lot of kinds of things. I just give that as an example, but excitedness or anything. There can be so many things. So I just kind of allow, and those sketchbooks are really good for that. Um, and I have tons of those. I have lots with faces in them too. I think you've probably seen one that might be similar, or you feel connected to, because I think we have a similarity with this kind of stuff where you do some um, like textural work
Yeah.
on the
Yep.
pages
Yep.
and
Yep.
this kind
And
of
for me, Vanessa, is I've got some stuff left. I was working on a painting. I got stuff left, and I just randomly putting it in a sketchbook. And then later on I work into it. It's
oh
like,
yeah. Hmm.
I mean, I have a thing. It's like a thing now. I don't throw anything away for paint, or like it has to go on something. Even if it's a box, I'll put it on a box, and then I've created these boxes. It's like I feel like you can play a game in your mind with yourself, like, and you would be surprised where it leads to.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, I agree with that. And if you don't allow for that, you're never going to see,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know.
that gets back to what we talked about in the beginning. You're into this perfection. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, I'm not going to start it unless it's going to be a masterpiece. The
right,
masterpiece comes from the imperfection,
right.
the
Yes,
perfectly imperfect. We love that.
yes. Yeah, just kind of dabbing at it here and there. I think it built up a lot, but we were just talking during the time. So, but it's all very small. I just work in thin, small, quietly building up, not like I have
Yep.
in this part of the painting. In the beginning, it was, maybe seemed pretty chaotic and building up the mark making and stuff, but it turned into this and I just thought I'd work on that while we were talking. I just felt like it was like the right energy for the
Yep.
talk. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it looks
Yeah.
absolutely stunning. I love there's like a texture to the surface that I don't know if it's something that's coming through on the but did you texturize the panel before you worked
I
on it?
did, yeah, I did do a little texture, but this panel, this is that Artifacts, I think
The
it's
lead.
all in panel,
Yep.
533 lead prime. So there is a little bit of texture to the surface too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks great. It looks
So
absolutely
combination of mark making and then that texture, allowing that to show through and then smoothing out some areas will make that texture obviously show up even more because of that, co-
but yeah.
juxtaposition of the two.
Yep.
Oh, wait, why am I
You know,
hearing?
Vanessa, I was just thinking, I'd love to do like a workshop, like you and I do like a team teaching workshop. That would be so much fun.
Oh, wow, that'd be amazing. I'd love that. Oh my gosh, can you imagine? Oh,
Oh, we would just be like in
that would
high
be so
heaven,
cool.
I think. Because it's like everything you talk about is like, oh my God, I feel that way too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I know. And just the combination of how we work, I think would be really neat too.
Yeah. And I think it would be a really cool energy. I think we'd have a
Hmm.
cool energy. Okay, so I wanted to talk about your new book, Sentience. If you can just kind of show us, I know everybody's going to want to go get this now, especially knowing the not only beautiful work, but beautiful writing and everything inside. So why don't you kind of just introduce us, even how it got started, like how you got the idea to put together a book, like just everything and anything that you can tell us. So how about that?
Well, the publisher contacted me to make the book, so that's how the idea came about. And
Yeah,
I said, okay, yes, I'd love to do that. And so that came to be that way. And it was a process. We both had some things going on as well during our lives that
yeah,
um, I think also kind of ended up a part of the book, part of the making of the book too, in a way.
yeah,
The life of it and what it gained from that. Um, as far as the title of it, I felt that was important
yeah.
in several ways. I think I could just leave that be, and people can guess what that means.
Uh,
I just feel like as humans, that feeling is important, and that
yeah,
we should allow more of that, and not forgo, not not try to surpass it to get to the finish, which is we see a lot happening with certain things, and so I felt it was important to just drop that as the title, and then a lot of the writing in the book for sure is about that too,
yep,
about being a human being,
yeah,
you know,
yep.
really.
In an imperfect world, right?
Yeah,
In an imperfect world.
yeah.
And you also had, because I know you have tons of work. I've seen so much of it on Muddy Colors. You had to edit, right? You had to kind of select work and you had to figure out not only because I was very noticed how you brought the reader through. Like
Ah,
the things that you started out with, right? And what you ended up with, and what those, I
yes.
mean, there was a conscious effort in the design and what you selected, and if you could talk about that process.
Yes. Thanks for noticing that. I thought it was really important. So I
Yeah.
was very particular.
Yeah.
I probably did. I felt like I might have driven the publisher crazy. But,
If it's good in the end, that's what it's all about.
but it was important to me, yeah. So
Yeah.
again, integrity, I suppose. This is the first book I've ever put out. I don't know, if there will be another one. I hope there will be. But
Yep.
I've been published in books, but
Yep.
I've never had my own just full art book. Uh,
Right.
so I just felt that was really important. It's really beautiful. I'm happy with how it's turned out, how it
Yep.
looks, feels, and the
Yeah.
flow, like you said, and all of that. And it's really exciting. Um, and I love that to hear that, like how you said that it's you can really feel that to it,
Yeah.
the start, how it starts and finishes, and the flow it
Yes.
has. So
Yep.
I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, and the other thing is I know there was many different, you said there was a book with the sketchbook work
Oh
in it as
yeah.
well,
Yeah,
because I
so
don't have
this is
that
the
one.
standard one.
Yep, I think that's what I have.
And that has the gold.
Yeah, that's why I said I had to get gold. I love gold, so I was like,
Yeah.
yep, gold.
And then this is the premium edition.
Now,
And
can I ask this, Vanessa? That picture that's on that cover, that was a Muddy Color demo for Muddy Colors, right?
yeah, yeah, the interview with Dan, and then
Yes.
yep, that was great. And that's actually really funny too, because this was how it was, for most of the demo. If you watch that video,
Uh-huh.
And then we talked about it off camera, off the interview
Yeah.
thing that we did. And he was talking about putting a face in there. And so I added that. And then I was really happy with it. But I
Yeah.
was kind of like, I wanted it to be an abstract,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
which is cute
it,
because now I just look back at it like, oh, I'm so glad he did that.
yeah, and if people are interested, you can go to Money Colors, and I'll put that link as well to get Vanessa's video to kind of check out the process behind that.
Yes.
Now, how much of the sketchbook work is in the back? Like, if somebody can make a decision and they could only get one book, I wanted them to know
Well,
which one they should get.
that isn't an option anymore. This was only from the crowdfunding. So
Okay,
you
so
were
they
only
can
able to
get
get the
the standard.
now just the standards available. And so it doesn't have there are some drawings or there are some mixed media that include graphite in them towards the end.
Yep,
Um, so there is that in there, but most of it is painting. But like these are still in the standard edition, and those are black and white or relatively
yep,
monochromatic.
yep,
So, but that's why we chose this cover because it was mostly monochromatic. So it's just kind of
right.
seeing like this is what you have in that other book too. But this is
Awesome,
that one is included in the standard. The cover this cover is also in the standard inside the interior
awesome.
images.
So you're gonna have to do another book of just your sketchbook stuff.
Yeah, I would like to. I have one book that I for sure want to do, but there are a couple sketches from it in this book.
Yeah,
Um, but I do want to do a sketch or a drawing book
yeah.
only
Awesome.
because I do have so much of that.
Yeah, and you got a book already waiting to happen. Well,
Yeah,
that was, if there's anything else that maybe we haven't talked about that you'd like to add, that because that was like my last question. So, was there
mainly
anything
just
else?
as far as the book goes, I think I just want to add that, of course, I knew how much work it would be. But to anyone who has no idea,
Yeah,
making a book is a lot. And I'm not saying this to get any, credit
yeah,
for anything or what. I just want anyone who hears this to be aware of the people that we really admire in their work and when they make books and put it out there for us to all get.
yeah,
It's just so much that they've done, let alone the art, but that they've
yeah,
created this
absolutely.
opportunity for us to carry this thing that we get to go, oh yeah, and look at the pages. But there's so much life
Yeah,
in just the making of the book, let alone
yeah.
obviously the making of the art that was in it and the writing
Yeah,
and
and
whatever else.
there's also like we had talked about, there's the selection, the editing, the writing, the go back and forth, the
Yeah.
redesign, what pages, how do I make it all connected? I mean, yeah,
Hmm.
but I
Yeah.
think it
I did a
it
lot of rearranging in this to make it feel like it flowed well and the writing flowed well. So I just really, I mean, honestly, what you said, I was just like, it does make me get choked up. But I think I get choked up about this book a lot.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like I always think it's like when you do a book, it's kind of like your baby, like you
Yeah,
just gave birth to this thing because it was a lot of months of hard labor, to get it out. And I
yeah.
think, when I saw it, I was like, oh, gotta get this. And so when I saw
Thank
the
you.
Kickstarter, I was like very excited about that. Told everybody I knew, you got to get this. It's great.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you. Yeah, and I'm glad that there is still an option to get it now, even though the crowdfunding, the Kickstarter is finished.
yep,
You can go and get it at, well, I'll leave the link for that with you that if
yep.
you put it in the article too. So
Yeah, so you guys definitely have to go out and get it. Any other of the goodies still available for purchase?
I'm not sure. I'll ask about that. So,
Okay,
well, but I do know the book is available. I'm not sure about the rest of it. The
yeah,
prints and stuff, you mean? The separate stuff?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, cool.
yeah. I'll look into it.
Yeah, and then we'll put it definitely in the link. Well, I
Okay.
wanted to thank you so much. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. And then when the book came out, I'm like, oh, I totally have to do it. It's a sign. It's a
Uh,
sign
yeah,
because I
thank you so
wanted to.
much. I really
Yeah. So
enjoyed this conversation with you. I feel really connected with you. I did before, and this just like cinched it. So
like,
I really
oh, we have to
appreciate
be
it.
neighbors here, you know?
Yeah, it's been neat to see your work and all of what you share too. And I appreciate so much that you think a lot of my work and what I share as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, I would love to, be able to chat with you again sometime, or even maybe do some
Yeah.
work together. That
Yeah,
would be
we have to go. If
fun.
there's an opportunity, we got to come up with something because I think it would be a whole heck of a lot of fun.
It
I
would
just,
be.
I
I
can see
agree.
it. The more that you start talking, I'm like, oh, this would be so cool. Even if it was like something we could do, even with sketchbook, I would even have fun. I mean, like
Yeah.
anything would be fun just to
Yeah.
keep the conversation going because not always do you have, people that kind of vibe with you so easily, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I know. It's true. So yes, yes, let's keep this conversation going.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Vanessa.
All right. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.